Seba, or Seba as I used to call him in my head, thinking it was reference to some Greek god or something, but it's simply short for Sebastian. Hailing from Sweden, he has an everlasting love for drum and bass, unlike I've ever really seen, maybe with the exception of Caliber, and his prolific output in this music to the scene is testimony to this. I first discovered Seba through his 12-inch with Lotek back in '96, which was So Long, and Sonic Winds, which had a real double punch of tracks. I mean, they're brilliant tracks, a couple of them. And it was really showed off his talent immediately. I mean, Sonic Winds goes 3.5 minutes without even hearing a kick, drum or snare, which was pretty new at the time. And likewise did So Long, with its hypnotic kind of whale noises and keys. At a time when drum and bass was still finding its feet. I remember some people like labeling this as intelligent drum and bass or atmospheric drum and bass. I prefer Fabio's coined phrase of liquid, but this isn't even liquid, so let's not even categorize it. It's not as though we need to, put them in reference in a section in HMV anymore. And there's lots of division going on at this time, with some hating this side of drum and bass, like it was upsetting the hardcore dance heads, offending them somehow. I don't know why, like it didn't belong. But I think these guys just crashed fast on the dance floor, not realising that many of us would be going on till the late or the early hours of the morning and needing something similar, but just a little bit more chilled, the crack of dawn. So while we're on Seba's good-looking records tracks in the late '90s, I've got to give a shout out here to Nick Purser and Gareth Jones, who did all the artwork, which was amazing. If you were down Black Market Records or Tower Records in Piccadilly, they just stood out. The reference of that cosmic artwork. It was just beautiful. You just bought it half the time for the artwork. It just pulled you in. And Seba continued to release a lot of records on Good Looking in the late '90s, and they always found themselves in a Bookham DJ set, whether it was progression sessions or points in time, and purely for the reason that they were just quality. And as Chris from Blue Martin once said on a podcast, Camouflage always seemed to find his way into his DJ set. Check out those Blue Martin podcasts, by the way, very good. And looking back, it was a beautiful time for UK dance music, and I remember reading an article once with Seba with Paradox and post 2000 era, and Seba said he was reflecting back at those times with a tear in his eye, and which was quite honest for a guy in that scene to say something like that, and hence why I remember it, and now I know what he means. After the year 2000, things seemed a little quiet for Seba. And Good Looking Records was starting to let the business side dominate the music a little, which is a big no-no. And a lot of the artists soon found themselves sort of searching elsewhere. And I think it was around this time that Seba started up his own label, Secret Operations, and produced some work on offshore recordings as well. Dabbled with some housey stuff as well. But it wouldn't be until 2004 when I heard 16 Stories with Robert Manos on the Metalheads 4 compilation, which is what an album that is. That I thought he's gone nowhere. He's here, he's back. And the following few years, which would be a couple of big years for Seba, he produced the album Beats Me with Paradox and Manos featured on it, which was an excellent album. And for me, this was like the rebirth of Seba. It was like he was like the full range Seba, and it was beautifully melancholic and nostalgic, work of the '90s still that he always had. But his harder and darker production was balancing perfectly now. So he could do both. His range had got much wider. So he could produce a lot of tracks for both home and the club settings simultaneously. Like many of the other good-looking artists like Blame and Big Bud, he'd put those good-looking record years behind him and he just moved on. And Hospital Records were quite good at picking up artists around this point and spotting talent. And they put out Move On, which was Paradox and Robert Manos again. which I still listen to this day frequently. It's a beautiful track. That came out around 2005. And at the same time, I think he released a couple of tracks with Manos again on Marcos Intellex's Dat Music album, which was another great album. Check that out if you haven't. So during the noughties, he was pretty prolific in releasing 12 inches towards the end of the noughties, but you had to dig pretty deep to find these 12s. So in 2008, he released Return to Forever, where you realise now that he's mastered both the harder side as well as his down-tempo, jazzy, housey side. His beats have picked up, the bass levels are on point. He just has this fuller sound, and basically his tools have been sharpened big time. I mean, this album has longevity. It's weird. I mean, this album just seems to get better with age. Blaze and Fade Out and Crockett are probably basically what signifies what direction he's going into now. Where again, he seems to unite that soulful side with the harder side, whilst avoiding it sounding like jump up, like not many artists can seem to achieve. Around 2011 and 2012, I remember Welcome to Our World being quite a big track, just before he released his next album, Identity. A very fitting title when you consider that he'd perfected his unique style now. And I definitely consider, from the amount of work that he's put in, he'd peaked already. But once again, he exceeded my expectations, and to me this is his best work to date. His tenacity separates the men from the boys here. I mean, you just check out his 30-minute showcase mix on BBC Radio 1. You find it on YouTube. If you want an introduction to Seba, then just go straight there and forget this. It's much better than this. And I just wanted to tell the whole world about this album, but as usual, you're either on Seba's train, or if you're lucky enough to catch it, or you're not, And when an album's this good, I don't need to say much more. And since 2014, in typical Seba attitude, he's not stopped releasing singles, probably add up to about 5 albums. Notable tracks since then probably include, in my eyes, Close to You EP, Cold Spring, and Reflect with Robert Manos, and the Mesmerism EP. They're all brilliant. He's gone the way like many artists and released and realised that the album has sadly taken a dive in recent times with the rise of streaming. But then again, artists used to test a dub plate out in the clubs before releasing an album, so anything's possible. Personally, I love an album. It's a moment in time, it's a project, it's an hour of time that can cure a mood that you're in, as opposed to like 5 minutes where I'm constantly looking what's my next track going to be. Now, as you can imagine, trying to do a top 10 of Seba with the amount that he's done is near impossible, but I've tried to include a wider range spread over 25 years of maintaining that Seba sound, keeping it all to drum and bass. And no one can get near Seba and his sound, his chopped up beats every 4 bars, and his melodic keys, and his absorbing bass lines. But do check out Polaris. I mean, he's an excellent drum and bass artist. He's a big fan of Seba as well. He's of similar caliber, but he's also got his own unique style. Long may Seba continue to put out tracks, which I believe he will. Purely as he's got such a love for the music, you couldn't do it otherwise. He's put out tracks on almost every major drum and bass label I can think of, which is what every new budding artist can only dream of, proving that hard work, love for your craft and commitment reaps rewards. If not financially, then at least certified legendary status.